Good evening, you're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Joanna Ho. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Charles III is officially proclaimed as monarch of Britain. The Hong Kong Rugby Sevens and the Snookers Masters get the all clear. And 5 speech therapists are jailed for 19 months, each for a series of books deemed to be seditious. Charles III has been officially declared King of Britain. A select group of top politicians, religious figures, and civil servants gave Charles their stamp of approval in a ceremony dating back hundreds of years, Sachin Kafi reports.
Senior current and past politicians, high-ranking civil servants and leading members of the clergy gathered for a ceremony steeped in tradition and broadcast live for the first time. The clerk of the Accession Council made the announcement the country was waiting to hear following the death of Queen Elizabeth, its longest-serving monarch.
The Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign of happy memory, become our only lawful and rightful liege lord. God save the King!
God save the King!
The proclamation was signed by Charles' son William, his wife Camilla, and Prime Minister Liz Truss.
My mother gave an example of lifelong love and of selfless service. My mother's reign was unequaled in its duration, its dedication, and its devotion. Even as we grieve, we give thanks for this most faithful life.
God save the King! God save the King!
Gun salutes rang out in Hyde Park, the Tower of London, and across Britain. Flags were raised to full mast as the country opened a new chapter in its history. Sachin Katpi, HKIBC.
Earlier, Charles pledged to follow his late mother and devote his life to serving Britain with loyalty, love, and respect. In his first address to the nation, the monarch paid tribute to Queen Elizabeth.
People continued to place floral tributes outside Balmoral Castle in Scotland, where Queen Elizabeth died on Thursday at the age of 96. Her 73-year-old son Charles, who became king on her death, returned to London and addressed the nation from Buckingham Palace.
She made sacrifices for duty. Her dedication and devotion as sovereign never wavered. Through times of change and progress, through times of joy and celebration, and through times of sadness and loss. As the Queen herself did with such unswerving devotion, I too now solemnly pledge myself, throughout the remaining time God grants me, to uphold the constitutional principles at the heart of our nation. To my darling Mama, as you begin your last great journey to join my dear late Papa, I want simply to say this: thank you. May flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.
Charles earlier greeted well-wishers outside the palace.
God save the King! God save the King!
Thousands of people waited to greet the new king and offer him their condolences. Charles, accompanied by his wife Camilla, who is now the Queen Consort, inspected the floral tributes to Elizabeth before making their way to their new home.
Locally, more people have gone to the British Consulate General to pay tribute to Elizabeth. Some parents brought along their children to lay flowers outside the diplomatic mission in Admiralty. Many bouquets had British flags attached. One boy had a Queen's Jubilee music box, but he did not know who Elizabeth was. His parents said they hoped to tell him more about Hong Kong under the British. Photos of the late monarch, as well as memorial cards for the Queen, were also seen. Some 50-cent coins, which carry Elizabeth's profile, were placed on the ground in remembrance. Hong Kong will host the Rugby Sevens and an international snooker tournament as planned, but it's not known if the Hong Kong Marathon will go ahead as pandemic concerns continue. Sports Minister Kevin Yeung said the Hong Kong Masters Snooker Tournament in October and the Rugby Sevens in November will go ahead as scheduled. Yeung said the number of players from overseas is not too large and they will be required to follow a closed-loop arrangement. He said infection risks could be controlled as long as the players and spectators are kept apart at a certain distance. When asked if fans can drink alcohol at the Hong Kong Rugby Sevens, Yeung said they can drink water but must put their masks back on immediately afterwards. Speaking about the Standard Chartered Hong Kong Marathon, which is also scheduled for November, the sports chief said officials are hoping that it could be held. However, there has been no decision on approving the race, as studies are continuing into how to lower infection risks. The Hong Kong Association of Athletics Affiliates earlier proposed cutting the number of runners from 37,000 to 25,000. On a separate note, Commerce Minister Algernon Yao, speaking to Reynard Chan in an iCable News show, said the government will relax border restrictions according to the pandemic situation. He cited the announcement yesterday to scrap hotel quarantine for air crew. Responding to calls from invitees of a global bankers summit in November for a 0+7 quarantine regime for all arrivals, Yao said the government will investigate the need to ease the rule. COVID cases in Hong Kong have dropped below 10,000 for the first time in 3 days. This comes as a pediatrician urged parents to get their children vaccinated to reduce the chances of developing long COVID. Janice Low reports.
There were 9,787 new COVID infections today, with 185 of them imported. 8 patients died from the virus. The youngest was 21. The unvaccinated man also suffered from cerebral palsy. After testing positive for COVID on Wednesday, he was admitted to the United Christian Hospital the next day because of a heart problem. The hospital authority believes that his death was COVID-related due to respiratory failure caused by pneumonia. Public hospitals have admitted another 333 patients, taking the tally to 2,698, with 16 in intensive care. One more class in South Island School has been ordered to suspend face-to-face lessons for a week after 3 infections were found. 3 classes have now stopped in-person teaching. Meanwhile, pediatrician Mike Kwan revealed that around 20% of the children who contracted the virus developed long COVID symptoms. Some children suffered from mental issues, including psychosis after recovering from COVID. Kwan, who's a consultant at Princess Margaret Hospital, says he comes across cases of croup almost every day, although health officials disclose only the more serious ones. He urged parents to get their children vaccinated to reduce the possibility of long COVID and other complications. Janice Low, HKIBC.
A member of the Commission on Children says youngsters with special needs are more prone to abuse in disadvantaged households because of the financial stress caused by COVID.
Up to more than 1/4, over 25% of all those children with special education needs are particularly at risk of suffering from physical child abuse. Now, we particularly urging the government and also our stakeholders in the community to join hands in this critical period of time to offer much higher priority and also provide sufficient resources to our children of young age in order to support their families, to allow them to have a better opportunity of development.
5 speech therapists have each been sentenced to 19 months in jail for publishing a series of children's books deemed to be seditious. The district court said the books brainwashed younger readers into thinking that Hong Kong is not part of China. The 5 defendants were escorted to the district court where they were sentenced to 19 months in jail each, 3 days after they were convicted of conspiring to publish and distribute seditious publications. Between June 2020 and July last year, the speech therapist published 3 illustrated books which portrayed Hong Kong as a village of sheep and the mainland as the home of wolves, which oppressed the sheep. In her own mitigation, Lai Man-ling reflected on the restrictions and cost of exercising the freedom of speech. District Judge Kwok Wai-kin cut her short, saying the courtroom was not the place to make a political declaration, adding that Lai could appeal if she is dissatisfied with the judgment. Another defendant, Melody Yeung, said she didn't regret standing by the sheep's side, but she regretted not being able to produce more books before her arrest. The other defendants were Sidney Ng, Samuel Chan, and Fong Chi-ho. Kwok said the 3 books brainwashed children by instilling the concept that Hong Kong is not a part of China. He also condemned the books for stating that the sheep would die if they do not resist oppression by the wolves. The maximum sentence is 2 years in jail, but Kwok set 21 months as the starting point after scrutinizing the case. As the defendants had no previous criminal record and were cooperative throughout the trial, he deducted their prison time by 2 months to 19 months. They are expected to be released soon, as they have already been remanded in custody for over a year. Hong Kongers are taking advantage of the long weekend to enjoy the Mid-Autumn Festival today. Many headed to parks to gaze at the moon and admire lanterns. Janice Low reports.
For the 2nd consecutive year, Hong Kongers got to enjoy free tram rides on the Mid-Autumn Festival, apart from the lanterns and mooncakes. Those on the upper deck have a better chance of appreciating the full moon. Although some traditional events such as the Tai Hang Fire Dragon Dance were cancelled for the 3rd consecutive year, people could still head to see lantern displays. Thousands of visitors gathered in Victoria Park to admire the city's largest lantern display. This 7 meters tall lantern, Happy Duo Under the Full Moon, was one of the most popular installations and a hotspot for photo taking. Another installation is this installation featuring the 12 zodiac signs. The park is also filled with numerous lanterns, including those the visitors brought themselves. In West Kowloon, installations of moon were set up as part of the carnival for the Mid-Autumn celebration. This man said the moon installations increased the festive spirit. But there are broadcasts ordering visitors not to damage the moon installations by sitting on it or moving it. Janice Low, HKIBC.
On to the weather now. Cloudy weather tonight might prevent revelers from getting a good view of the moon, but anyone who's patient will get a better chance at 40 minutes past midnight. Tomorrow will be hot with a maximum temperature of 33 degrees. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Saturday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Joanna Ho. Thanks for watching. Happy moon gazing.